I'm really interested into knowing what is the cutting edge right now. Everyone is talking about generative AI. To the companies that are spending their 11th dollar, they're going to want to do that efficiently. How are they doing that, Connie?
I think technology has always been the forefront, right? So I think, for my 12 years at Microsoft, we have been helping our organizations, the customers from financial services perspective, which is banks, insurance, and capital markets. It's really how they digitally transform. I would say before GenAI came into the play, it will be how you actually empower your employees to work closer together, to collaborate, and to make your workplace more efficient. And then also on your operations side, also on your middle office side, from the front office to the middle office for credit control, and also modernizing your core. So I think all of that evolved technology. And I would say fundamentally, the key cutting-edge technology that has been in the market. So one is cloud. So cloud computing is making it more agile, more cost-effective, moving from a CapEx to OpEx, so we're making it a very economy of scale. The second one will be on data and AI. I think data and AI has been, I remember the first article I wrote was 10 years ago, right? Data is the new currency, and we still talk about data and AI today. So I would say data and AI, and then in between there was blockchain and all these crypto, and then I think the fourth one will be now Gen AI. So I think these are some of the cutting edge that I think our customers are really adopting, embracing, and actually driving the efficiency as well as competitiveness and driving growth and business outcome.
How do you think about efficiency, Esther, when you're in your role, when you're looking for what is on the cutting edge, you're looking for what's going to be that standout company in the future? Yeah. But at the same time, we had that DeepSeek moment this year, and it was learned that perhaps AI can be done more efficiently.
Absolutely.
What did it mean to you?
So I think when it comes to cutting edge, there comes two separate parts, right? One is to see the part that you guys can feel it, right? So I'm sure, 3 years ago, nobody really heard about GPT, and now everybody has a chatbot, right? So that is the part that's happening. You hear a lot about different kind of chatbot, different kind of model, different kind of use, such as, robots and EV, right? That's one aspect of it. But to me, the more exciting part, the real action actually happened behind the scene, i.e. how this AI is being produced. So a little bit of my background. So before I started my current AI VC, I was running the head of investment for SenseTime. So SenseTime, as you based in Hong Kong, we know that, is one of the larger China-based hyperscaler. So during my time there, apart from investment, we did something quite interesting. At that time, we built Asia's largest AI data center. Now, think about it, right? In the process of building the AI data center, we actually encountered a lot of problems. So a lot of things that can be done significantly more efficient. So what does the AI center do? AI center is the one that produces compute. So you can think of it as an AI factory. So you can think about how the factory, any assembly factory has moved from 50 years ago to these days is a very different factory. So is AI factory. From 5 years ago to now, how AI is produced is dramatically different. Now, all of you here are investors, so you guys all know that NVIDIA share price went up 30 times in 5 years. And the reason is because GPU happened to be the component that can do AI training. Now, however, this is the year, 2025 is the first in the history that the majority of the compute produced is going to be used in inferencing, i.e. to users, than to training, right? Training is with 20 companies in the world like Microsoft and Google and OpenAI and Baidu, but inferencing is done by 8 billion people, every single one of us. So this is the pivot year. So how should we do inferencing more efficiently? I mean, of course, NVIDIA will always be there, right? But apart from NVIDIA, there are ways to do it more efficient. So one of the cutting edge things that we're thinking of, and I think David mentioned robotics, right? Why are we not seeing a robotic cooking and cleaning for you right now? Why are there so many robots in factories, but how come there's no robot chefs for now, right? One of the major issues is because the world lacks these kind of multimodality data. Think about it, right? LLM is only when you input stuff. So of course, these are structural data, but think about a robot. A human being can actually have all kinds of senses, sense of smell, sense of touch. All these are not part of the algorithm right now. So how do we actually make robot a potential reality? The way that I'm thinking, and this is what we're incubating, what we're investing, is actually biocomputing. So can we use our brain cells to produce a chip. Now, this might sound like science fiction for some of you. I had a chat with Ed previously. He said, are you sure this is happening? The reality is that it is. In fact, in our lab, right, for one of my portfolio companies, it takes a mouse neuron 5 minutes. 5 minutes from a mouse neuron, it can play Pong, you know the computer game Pong, better than a silicon-based chip. This is the power of biocomputing, and I think that's one aspect that I think is the next step of inferencing. Sorry, it's a very long-winded answer to your question.
No, but not at all. It's funny, I just learned to play poker, and I was worried about AI there. And so a lot of other things to be worried about, although I do appreciate using AI at work. Speaking of that, there are so many ways financial companies are starting to use AI. You know, before we get into all the opportunities, what are some of the limitations still? There's a lot of regulation. When I talk to the big banks, there's always concerns about data. Yet, while that might have been a concern a year ago, you see them opening up at a dramatic speed to different forms of LLMs.
Yes.
How does that look?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. I think the key thing is, you know, the environment, right? So that's to your point, particularly for financial services industry, we are highly regulated. So some of the key areas that people will be concerned about will be security, privacy, and the compliance to the regulations. And covering from Asia perspective, each country will have their own regulations, like Hong Kong, Singapore, and other countries. We have to understand what's the regulations about. And the fundamental on the regulation side is about your risk assessment. So as an organization, whenever you're adopting a technology, it's not just the technology itself, it's the entire end-to-end. How are you engaging with the customers? How are your employees running or using different systems to actually serve the market or create new products? So all of that as an end-to-end cycle, we have to assess the risk management. And I think that's the part which we need to do a better job in advertising and also to discuss and share, socializing it with the regulators. For the past 12 years, what we have been doing at Microsoft is we actually have engaged with a lot of the regulators globally and on a one-on-one basis to actually let them understand what is cloud computing versus traditional outsourcing, because that's where most of the regulation guidelines is about today. And from there, I've seen a lot of regulators, including Hong Kong and Singapore and others, that they have actually updated their guidelines and issued new ones so that our customers and the industry like partners who can develop into this platform and launch new services, which is compliant to the latest guidelines. So that's one. The second thing about Gen AI, so for the last 2 years, our conversation with regulators have basically around Gen AI, what it is not. I think it's very important that Gen AI is an LLM, and it's not a data analytics. So it's not something which is coming up with a data algorithm and all of that. So it's actually a language model to do summarization to help as a normal person, right, to adopt technology in a much economic way and easier way. So data definitely is an important topic for the regulators, and data needs to be secure. So from our cloud perspective, this has been our bread and butter. So it's not something about Gen AI that we need to specially protect your data. We have always been protecting data. So that's why I think when Gen AI come about, our customer can easily adopt this technology because it's under the same security framework. So the data belongs to our customer. We don't have access to your data. It's fully secure. You have access. Every encryption is done by our customers, and we don't own the data. So I think that is something that we will continue to engage with the regulators. But so far, Gen AI is something that you can deploy already under the current jurisdiction.
It's interesting. There are a host of questions I wanted to ask about the cost of AI and the efficiency as we started to talk about, but we're going so far into the use cases, and it seems pretty futuristic already. Taking brain cells, you said, and being able to make new uses for them. What can you not do today, Esther, that you wish you could do tomorrow with this technology?
I think of AI as, if you look at the 5,000 years of written history, each era or each dynasty is defined by technology. So you have the Bronze Age, you have the Industrial Revolution, you have the Internet era. So the next era is AI, right? So I think of AI, and if you look at the history, every technology serves one major purpose. That is equalization. It makes people more, it gives people more tools so that the less will have more. Okay, so when you think about AI as the big equalizer, what are the current industry that is most inequitable? Think about it, right? That could potentially be cured by having access to AI. And to me, there are two sectors that really stands out. One is education, right? Think about it, right? If you have kids, some of you already subscribe to, let's say, Khan Academy, which is a fantastic program for the kids to learn STEMs and all kinds of knowledge. The kid from India versus US from Hong Kong, they can have the same level of tailored AI tutor. How great is that, right? So that's one sector. Another sector, which holds very dear to my heart, is healthcare. Because healthcare, with access to healthcare and without access to healthcare, the difference is literally life and death. Now, with AI, there is a lot of agentic AI that is be able to collect all the health data of a particular rare disease, right? A lot of times when you have rare disease, you're pretty much screwed. Think about it, because there's not a lot of use cases. But with AI, as a matter of fact, even with this rare disease, there is potential to cure them. I mean, I personally strongly believe that within the next decade, we can cure cancer. Now, this year's Nobel Prize in chemistry, 2 of them went to AI. Why is that? The protein can fold. They can predict how the protein fold. And more interestingly, when the protein is folded, you can reverse engineer the process. You know what is protein? Cancer cells are proteins. So we can potentially cure that. And this is all within our reach. So it's no longer just about fairy tale when they talk about biocomputing or curing cancer. I think it's actually very doable.
Although I can't wait until I'm talking more on television about humanoids and robots. So I'll wait for that moment. You'll see lots of those in finance, but for me, myself, I got my degree in quantitative finance. I love AI. I love big data. What are people doing now that you find on the cutting edge? How are your clients using Gen AI to move the needle? There was this great report your team had shared with me with 31,000 companies saying how they use AI. Some people get scared, right? Some people say they're going to take my job, but the people who say I'm going to use it are tending to be the people who get ahead.
Yeah, so you mentioned about our workbench index, right? So I think what the analysts came out with the report is the importance of really having human and AI working together, the collaboration, and what AI can bring, right? So I think we talked about the AI. So I think AI definitely can bring productivity, but also creativity and innovation, particularly to our industry. And the other thing is AI is also a very good tool for skilling and learning, right, for our organizations. The other thing that the report come out is 80% of the APAC leaders really planning to use an agent in the next 12 to 18 months. So AI is here. In terms of usage, there's a lot of usage right now for Gen AI. Some of them are low-hanging fruit, which is really just Copilot. So I mean, we just announced earlier with UBS launching Copilot for 50,000 of their employees, and about this week we have Barclays, which is doing even more. 100,000 of the employees is going to use the Microsoft Copilot. And what they do is really content search, very simple. Can I claim my leave? How much leave balance do I have? I mean, this simple question you always have a human to do it. Maybe now you can have an AI to automate that process. And then the other thing is like an AI agent, AI assist. So today I would say the first level is human having AI assistants. So the AI assistant can be on your day-to-day job, right, helping you draft the email, summarizing the team meeting, so you don't have to listen to an hour recording to figure out maybe the last 2 sentences relevant to you, but you invested an hour, now you can just read it in no time. The other one is really about the surfacing, so contact center. We have a lot of contact center usage where a typical search may take 4 minutes, now it's 30 seconds, and that's done by Prudential. And then we have people like Moody who's telling that most of the time they can save 80% of their data collection if they use Gen AI, or they can have 50% saving on analytics. So I will say self-surfacing and robots or virtual assistants on the web for serving your clients. So I think there's a lot of use cases already. I would say the more advanced one will be on the fraud, particularly in our industry. So fraud detection is something that we're looking at for our advanced workflow, but there's plenty use cases in the industry right now.
Yeah, I will say for myself, I don't think I would have become a television anchor if I didn't have Bloomberg AI reading my regulatory filings for me. So I appreciate it. Esther, so going back to that question about cost, what's been explored this year is this idea of the some estimated dollars looking to go into AI data centers, power needs. I've seen many estimates on how many trillions that might be over the next 10 years. Do you think that it's overstated, or do you think that those grand estimates are correct based on the cost it would take to get to these big dreams that you've outlined?
I think if we produce AI the way that we used to produce AI, then there is no end to how much astronomically people can spend, including Microsoft, right? Microsoft spent like 30 billion last year in R&D alone and even more in buying chips. So, however, I think what I'm trying to do, or what I think the next frontier technology is how can we produce AI differently, right? I just talked a little bit about biocomputing. The beauty of biocomputing is that your human brain, your brain, doesn't need to look at 1,000 pictures of a dog to know that the 1,001 picture is a dog, right? But computer needs to do that. So basically, the token is very heavy when it comes to a regular GPU use. So biocomputing is one way to lessen the cost. Another way to lessen the cost is, how about we build data centers not on Earth? Because in my experience dealing with the building data center, we have to get a license from the government, we have to buy the land, we have to build a building, and then once the building is built, 50% of the cost went to cooling the GPU themselves. What if we can do it under the ocean? And even better, what if we can do it in the space? Now, this is not as crazy as it sounds, because if you think about it, in space, energy is free. Solar energy is free in space, okay? 99% efficiency versus 13% on Earth. Secondly, cooling is free. Space is minus 250 degrees, right? You don't have to worry about cooling that much, where radiation is very easy in space. And also maintenance, there's no oxidation in space. So whenever times the GPU breakdown is always because of heat. You don't have that issue at all. So can we think about how to create AI differently so that we can save a lot of costs? Because guess what? I think Jensen is right, and from NVIDIA. He said the token for inferencing is literally 1 billion times more than the tokens for training. And this is the year, if there's one takeaway for you guys for this lunch, I hope so, this is the year that inferencing surpass training. So this is the pivotal year that we're going to think about alternative ways to produce AI. And so this is what, my job is now dedicated to this area, which I find super exciting.
I think I would prefer my data center to live on another planet than myself. Hopefully the world goes that way instead. Connie, what is the biggest question that you get from clients?
How do I get started? And I think the key thing is just start anywhere, because Gen AI is for everybody. It's any employee that you have, from whether you're working as a frontline, you're working as a surfacing, whether you're working in the middle office or back office or IT operations or support maintenance, get started. Get your hands dirty, understand what the technology can do, and then rive up, because it's an evolving. And as I said, today's technology is available, regulations are available. It's quite cost effective because it's pay as you go. And also, I think it's about how do you use AI to reimagine your business process? Because at the end of the day, it's about people, process, and technology. And the art of how you actually evolve the three together, and that also includes human, is how to use AI smartly, so that you can actually, as I say, work smartly, but then you can also innovate quickly, and then you can also bring the business value quicker. So I think those are the three things that today's environment, whatever technology you're looking at, is Gen AI, data and AI, or as I say, cloud, I think this is where people need to get started, and then there's no limit to it.
Very notably, one industry we didn't talk about was software. There's been a lot of discussion over at Bloomberg from a lot of investors on what will win, what will no longer exist. What do you tell people, Esther?
I think the job of a programmer would become obsolete, just like when the Industrial Revolution came, the job of blacksmith is obsolete. However, 70% of the job right now that we have today did not exist during 150 years ago. So we cannot imagine what new job AI would bring, but I can fairly confident in saying that the job of a lot of the fundamental repetitive jobs, such as programming, such as lawyering, such as accountant, those jobs will not be here anymore. This is for sure it would happen. So the next questions I get all the time is, then what should my kids study? Now, because I'm a parent too, right? So what should my kids study? You don't know what your kids can study because the future is so far beyond, right? Think about it. You are limited. If you tell your kid what to study, you're limited by your own knowledge. So the way that I'm training my kid is that, listen, you just have to be very, very good at learning new things and be super comfortable in accepting changes and go a little bit beyond your comfort zone. So that is actually very important, and I cannot emphasize that strong enough. Be very comfortable to go out of your comfort zone.